So Franklin asked, could you do a video on how to manage billable hours, best resources for junior associates, and office decor? I'm like, okay, that sounds really interesting. Although some of it doesn't really have much to do with each other. And I don't think I could like speak for a full hour or even half an hour about billable hours. But with how to manage billable hours. I had the good fortune of not working for law firms that required billable hours, which was really great because that's one reason why so many attorneys hate working for big law firms, because you have to account for all of the time that you're working and you constantly have to, input it on the computer, like who did you do work for? And it's in increments of a tenth of an hour. So for example, let's say you do legal research, then you would have to get on the computer and within that client's record or whatever they call it, you would have to write in, performed legal research on such and such issues, and then probably 1.5 for 1.5 hours or 0.6, for 36 minutes. So in one of my recent live streams, my friend Felicia Z, who had worked for a big law firm in California for a while, she mentioned that in order to get 40 billable hours that counts towards the requirement that the firm has for the associates, she would typically have to work or be in the office for 60 hours. And again, that's because, so much of your day might also be eaten away by doing other things that can't be billable, or sometimes the hours that you bill might get, whittled away by whichever partner or attorney is in charge of you when they look over what you billed to different clients and stuff, if they think you took too long, for example. So anyway, there's really not any great advice I can have on that. I mean, I did deal a little bit with billable hours when I worked for a huge corporate law firm when I was a part-time legal assistant at Georgetown. I mean, during my time at Georgetown Law School, I worked on weekends as a legal assistant where I did have to keep track of my time. And there was one summer I worked for a bigger law firm in San Diego where we also had to do that too. So that's why there is that pressure on you when you're in the office that you better be working. You can't just chit chat with your colleagues or, take a leisurely lunch or just like stand around chit chatting with the secretaries. It's like you have to account for all the time that you're there and worry about by the end of the year, whether you met that billable target or not. Yeah. So it really forces you to be very efficient with your time. And that's why people who work for the big law firms typically have no free time either. They can't be goofing off or leaving work early, or they might be working on weekends too to get those billable hours in. Yeah. So the other question that Franklin had was, what are the best resources for junior associates? Yeah, because I don't know of any actual books out there that give advice. Although the good thing about YouTube is that there are some attorneys that have some videos on YouTube giving advice to new associates working for bigger law firms. But in general, the advice is that, you should be willing to work hard and work long hours. Don't leave until your supervising attorney leaves or tells you it's okay for you to leave the office. Don't complain. Have a good attitude. You have to be a team player and be professional at all times. Don't complain. Treat the other office workers with respect, because chances are likely the secretaries and the office staff and legal assistants probably know more about how to practice than you do when you're a first year associate. So I think definitely you don't want to talk too much about your personal life when you're first starting out, especially at a bigger law firm, because people are very focused. They have to get those billable hours in, and it's not supposed to be like some sort of like fun, collegial, social place, even though they do have some social activities usually. So you always have to put on this like professional demeanor. So definitely don't be talking about your relationship problems or your personal problems. Yeah, because I thought it was kind of interesting that one summer I had an intern, and we would go out to lunch every single day and talk about stuff. And actually, we're good friends now. I'm not going to name his name. Maybe he's watching it. But it wasn't until much later I found out that he had a son. So I just thought it was interesting that while he was my intern as a law student, he never told me that he had this son that I guess was, just sort of like an accident, like a child that he had with his girlfriend when he was younger. And but then looking back, I think like he wanted to put off that professional image and not get too comfortable, even though we were sort of like friends and we would chit chat and go out to lunch every day while he was interning with me. So so that's kind of like a good lesson that if you have like family issues or any problems going on with your spouse or your significant other or whatever, don't talk about it at work, especially when you're just starting out at a bigger law firm. So you kind of have to play it by ear, because if you're working for like a much smaller law firm where the other person is also talking about their family and their issues and stuff, then maybe it's okay to share and stuff. But it's always better to be kind of on guard, because the people at work are not really your friends. That's why you should keep your social life separate from your work life. So that's my little quick tip about, trying to succeed as a junior or a young associate working in a law firm or any sort of, office environment. So, and then Franklin also asked about office decor. Okay, I don't know. Does anybody actually want to hear my thoughts about office decor? I'm very decor challenged. So that's why I enjoy watching my YouTuber friend Eunice at Home's channel. Eunice Choi has a real knack for decorating and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I never really cared too much about decorating my offices. I might have like a framed picture of, like, I had this like painting that I bought in New Orleans that used to be in my office, or I used to have a framed poster of the activist Yuri Kochiyama in my law offices. But most of the time I would just have like a diploma or my bar certificate in a frame and my notary public certificate and my mediator certificate in a frame. Nothing really exciting, just plain old office furniture and stuff. I don't like having plants because that's one more responsibility. So I'm going to have to deal with trying to keep the plant alive. So yeah, I haven't really spent much time thinking about office decor at all. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so Dr. Sev says the girlfriend is fighting with his adult children over his asset. Well, that's really weird, because if it's, quote, just a girlfriend, again, I don't know what state he was a resident of or what the laws are there and stuff, but normally girlfriends don't have any right to inherit. So if DMX didn't leave a will, and he didn't leave her as the automatic beneficiary of his life insurance policy, or if he had a retirement account, sometimes people also have brokerage accounts or checking accounts where you can go ahead and designate beneficiaries too. So that's also another way to bypass having to deal with a will and all that stuff, probate. Yeah, but normally girlfriends or boyfriends, they don't have any rights to the person's assets anyway. Yeah, so what right would she have to be suing the estate, unless she's claiming that he had promised to give her money or something? I mean, that doesn't seem like it's going to be that winnable. Yeah, but I don't know all the details again. Yeah. So Serena, hi Serena. Congrats on 2K. My question is, since you excelled on the LSAT and tutored the LSAT, did you ever think about going out on your own to do solo LSAT? Yeah. I did sort of, but it's definitely a lot more lucrative to be an attorney than be an LSAT tutor. So yeah, there were times that I reverted back to tutoring the LSAT. For example, when my new law practice wasn't doing well at the beginning, this was over 16 years ago. So I was tutoring the LSAT for a couple of different companies, one of which was Kaplan, and that paid pretty crappy. Like even just the teaching time back then, I was paid $17 an hour, and then you were limited to maybe 2 hours of prep time at $7.25 an hour. So I know it's gone up a little bit since 2006, but probably not that much. And when I tutored people privately, I think I was charging something like maybe $30 for an hour. Yeah, but I did find it especially teaching the classes. Like I hated teaching the classes for Kaplan because I felt like I had to be on edge the whole time. And then students would just like bombard me with questions left and right. So you have to really be able to think fast and also speak and try to explain things while you're standing up the whole time in front of a bunch of people, maybe like 40 students. So it was nerve-wracking teaching these like group classes. And I really preferred just tutoring one-on-one, especially when I was going to get paid the full payment for myself, because some of the tutoring one-on-one was also through a different little company locally where I had to go to people's houses. And I think I got paid something like $25 for an hour. And that did not even include the driving time. So sometimes I'd like drive all the way to the person's house and they wouldn't even be home. I mean, it was just a total drag. Yeah. So, if I sold myself as a private LSAT instructor, just as an independent contractor, I still don't think I would be like rolling in the dough. Yeah, making say like $30 or even $50 an hour. Yeah, so I'm very grateful that my solo law practice has grown to the point where I no longer need to tutor the LSAT anymore. Yeah, I mean, it's a good business if you're still a student and stuff, but once you're actually a professional who could potentially make a lot more as an attorney, then it doesn't really make much sense to tutor the LSAT anymore. Yeah. Yeah, for the longest time, I wonder how you managed to study for the LSAT on top of extracurriculars, part-time jobs, and volunteering. How long? Yeah. Well, I mean, this is going to sound like I'm bragging or something, but I've always been really good at taking standardized tests. So to me, I actually, I thought taking or studying for the LSAT was fun. So it was kind of like fun, like doing these like little trick problems or brain teasers and stuff. Yeah. So very different from what the practice of law is. But so I would say, back when I was still a college student at Berkeley, I probably spent maybe about like 2 to 4 hours a week, depending on, as it got closer and closer to the test time, practicing on my own and going through workbooks. And then I did meet with a couple of friends, maybe at most 2 or 3 times, just to go over some questions that I had. And then the second time that I took the LSAT and scored higher, I just studied on my own. So, it wasn't that bad. Yeah. I mean, if I could go back in time, though, I really should have spent less time on extracurricular activities, and I should have taken easier classes so that I could have gotten more A's, because the real negative in my law school application was my GPA, which was just barely a 3.3 as an ethnic studies major. Just partly because I was at such a big public university where it was very hard to get A's. It seemed like the professors were very stingy giving A's, so I just constantly kept getting B, B plus, B minus. So it was kind of a downer. So if I had a higher GPA, like even at least a 3.6 or 3.7, then maybe I could have gotten into Yale or someplace better than Georgetown. So anyway, but let bygones be bygones, right? That was ages ago. So, and I think it is a little easier to get into law school now that I think in general, fewer people that score high on the LSAT want to actually go to law school. Yeah. So sorry I'm late. What's going on? Lawyers are worth helping people who need help. Oh, okay. Thank you, Patchy's Collection, for your words of encouragement. I know it's really hard to get a part-time legal job, especially with a big firm. How did you obtain such a role? How did you manage the time? Oh, well, it was because this firm, I'll just go ahead and say it. It was Skadden Arps in DC, which coincidentally was also the firm that my ex-husband worked for briefly before he became a law professor. So they would routinely advertise through the Georgetown Law School Career Services office. So that's how I knew that they had a job opening there. And the funny thing is that my career counselor at the time actually didn't think it was a good idea. She said, well, I know a lot of times people think that since it's Skadden, it's so prestigious and stuff, but you're not really going to learn anything substantive. And it's probably going to be more of a drain on your time and not really worthwhile. But I did it anyway. I mean, the pay was really good, and I got to see what life was like inside a big law firm. Of course, I was only there on the weekends for probably, I would say probably about like 7 7 hours, Saturdays and Sundays. After a while, it just got a little bit draining. And just as my career counselor had predicted, I really didn't learn anything. I hardly had any contact with real attorneys there. I was sitting in a cubicle with another part-time weekend legal assistant. One was another student at Georgetown. And I would just be proofreading briefs and flipping through papers, making sure that all the punctuation was correct and that there were no typos or printing errors. And one exciting moment was when a bunch of the legal assistants and I got called into a big conference room, and we had to look through tons and tons of papers to make sure everything was properly in order, no pages were missing. And they were preparing for a trial or some sort of big hearing. Yeah, so there was really no substantive learning of the law or interaction with, obviously, no interaction with clients and barely any interaction with the other attorneys. Yeah, so that's how I got that part-time legal job. But when you're in law school, the career services office should have all sorts of like random job postings for part-time jobs with different firms that might want someone to work part-time. But I think most of the time they're looking for someone to at least just work for a chunk during the summer. It is tough to find a place that wants to just hire a student temporarily during the school year, because those employers know that your first priority is law school, not to be working for their office. So they also tend to want people who want full-time real job positions as opposed to students, because students are more likely to just quit after a semester when they see how hard it is to juggle it. So then it wastes their time having to train someone who's pretty young, who might just quit after 3 or 4 months. So so you just never know. Sometimes you might luck into a position, or let's say you go to different bar association events and networking events and stuff, and somebody just takes a liking to you, or they know that somebody is willing to take on an intern, then maybe you can get lucky and also get a position that way just through networking. So yeah, so hopefully that helps. Yeah, but your number one focus definitely should be your law school studies when you're in law school anyway. Yeah. So let's see. Oh, hey, Maple Cook. Thank you for being here also. Yeah, Maple Cook's channel is on its way to 1,000 subscribers. Yeah, really great cooking show. My high school teacher said coworkers are never your friends. Yeah, I mean, that sometimes you want to be friends. You want to be friendly with your coworkers and stuff. So sometimes people do develop, very strong friendships, especially if it's a place that you've been working at for a long time. So but definitely, I feel like in the legal profession, especially the bigger firms, there's so much turnover with the attorneys there that, you're not really friends with people if people end up leaving the firm after a year or two. Yeah, I mean, I'm still on a friendly basis with some of my former coworkers, but it's not like we hang out or anything. So. Yeah. Okay. Dr. said your decor challenge. Your background still looks good in your live stream shows. Some reports say she's his fiance. They lived and have a child together. I hope anyone else in a similar situation gets things together. Yeah. Yeah. Well, even being a fiance doesn't give anyone automatic inheritance rights either. So she doesn't have any legal claim to, getting a chunk of his money. I mean, maybe the kid certainly does. Yeah, so I'm assuming he had no will whatsoever. Yeah, because let's say somebody has a will and they made the will before they had more children. So then, the children can certainly still inherit, even if they were born after the will was written and did not get specifically named in the will. At least that's the way it is in most states, I think. Okay. Yeah, logic seems hardest at first. Yeah. Yeah, some of those questions can be really tricky. That's why you have to really be able to read well and know the nuances of the language. And that's where I think, some people who might not have gone to school or grew up in the US have a real disadvantage. Yeah, because when I was tutoring the LSAT, the students that were not actually born and raised in the US were the ones that had the hardest time, scoring well on the LSAT. Yeah. Have you ever had to file an appeal in a case? Is it normal? What's amicus curiae? Can an outside party? Okay. So yes, I've handled several appeals to the North Carolina Court of Appeals. And it's not normal because usually you have to have a client that has enough money to pay the attorney to do the appeal. So a lot of times clients just, they don't have money to appeal it, and they don't have the wherewithal to figure out how to do it themselves. So usually you just go by whatever the trial court judge ruled on in whatever the situation is. Also in many situations, such as family law cases like child custody cases, the district court judge does have a lot of discretion in all of its decisions, like whether to award attorney's fees, whether the custody of the child goes to this parent versus that parent. Yeah. So sometimes appealing is not even worth it. But that's where someone who might be thinking about appealing a district court judge's decision really should be talking to someone that specializes in doing appeals. And hopefully the person will give a very, very balanced, objective view of the situation to let the person know, is it going to be worth your money to spend more than $10,000 on attorney's fees to try to appeal this? And amicus curiae, that's like some sort of like brief that other people that are not actually parties or attorneys involved in the case can also file. And you usually see law professors doing this. So my ex-husband is a law professor, so he's definitely done these kinds of like amicus briefs. If there's like some sort of like hot, say like Supreme Court case that really could have an effect in a certain area of law, then sometimes you do see law professors or attorneys that work for different nonprofit advocacy groups that also want to do their own brief, and then they can submit that for the judge to also look at, to consider when the judge or judges make their decisions. Yeah. So, but otherwise, like let's say you're just going to court, some random third party person can't just go barge into court and say, Your Honor, I wish to speak about this too. Let me tell you my opinion. So yeah, in general, outside parties don't have any ability to just go in or try to impact a judge's opinion. It's normally based on the arguments of the attorneys representing the actual parties in the case. Yeah. And maybe they can make an impact. I'm not sure because I've never had to do those kinds of amicus briefs. Yeah. So, but I would assume, the judge would probably care more about reading a brief written by a Harvard law professor rather than, Joe Schmo, who has done a lot of internet research. Yeah. What happens if you're a lawyer, you come to the courtroom dressed casually? No, well, I mean, the judge could punish, but they're not going to disbar you just because you came in dressed inappropriately. I mean, the judge might think that maybe the person is having a mental breakdown, if you show up wearing like a Speedo, or some like, Playboy bunny outfit to court, I think then the judge might call the lawyer's assistance program to get you evaluated or something. Yeah, but the funny thing is that sometimes you do see some older attorneys that were sort of dressed, in my opinion, a little too casually. Like there used to be this woman that would show up wearing almost pajamas, and she was an attorney. And I don't know if somebody finally said something to her, but I think after a while, she did start wearing more professional suit-looking things. But sometimes you do see like older attorneys, like women who don't wear a real suit to court, and they're just wearing like a sort of like a cardigan or a shawl type thing, or some like big dress. Yeah, but I think in general, yeah, most people know that you are supposed to be wearing a suit if you're an attorney and you're going to court. Yeah. So, I mean, if it's just like a really quick hearing, like an uncontested divorce or whatever, I might not wear my most expensive, nicest suit. I might just wear like a casual, comfortable dress and throw a jacket on over it when I'm actually in the courtroom. But yeah, I've never seen anybody wear a Hawaiian shirt and shorts though. Yeah, but you're not going to get disbarred over that. How does the LSAT go? Okay, well, it's been a long time since I tutored the LSAT as well as when I took it. But normally you would go to, what is it? Is it LSAC? Yeah, lsac.org. If you go to that website, you should be able to find all the information as to when the tests are offered. So back when I took it, the LSAT probably was only offered about 2 or 3 times a year. But now with the online testing and everything, I'm sure there are multiple administrations where you can take it. Maybe you can even take it from home now. I'm not sure about that. Maybe someone who has more recently been through the process can let us know. Yeah, but if you go to lsac.org, then you can, find all the information related to the LSAT and what the deadlines are to register to take it. And the LSAT is typically like a half-day test. And normally people shouldn't take it more than once or twice at most. So that's why it's so important to take as many practice tests as you can under timed circumstances before you take it for real. And most of the time people take it for the first time, say like spring of your junior year in college, because then you would apply for law school starting in fall of your senior year. This is assuming you want to go straight from college into law school. Yeah. So right now it's a little early for you to be worrying about the LSAT, but that's great that you're already thinking about it. So normally you wouldn't even have to register to take the LSAT until sometime your junior year in college. Yeah. But you can always start now, start taking those practice LSAT exams or get a prep book. It's never too early to start at least practicing those test questions. Yeah, it is multiple choice, but they do also have a writing component, which, they usually give you some sort of like a general fact pattern, and you have to argue either side. Like there's no right answer. They might say like, Sally is debating on whether to go to big state school for college or small expensive private school for college. And these are her criteria. And these are the things that she wants to focus on. Which school would you say Sally should go to and why? That's just like some like random example I just pulled out of my head. But so it's going to be one of those like, well, there are two choices, which thing should the person do? And then you have to write an essay under time circumstances too. And that writing sample will be provided as part of your law school application. So, but most of it is multiple choice though. Yeah. How frequently do you have to keep your legal knowledge up to date since the law changes all the time? How do you do that? Well, I think a lot of it has to do with being active in different bar associations. So in my state, we have the North Carolina Bar Association, which is voluntary. You don't have to join it, but it's definitely something that pretty much every attorney does join because they have different divisions, like the family law section. They have a labor and employment law section, criminal law, trust and estates. So you really do need to pay that extra, whatever it is, $300 to $400 a year to be a member of the voluntary bar association so that you can be on the listservs, which is where a lot of attorneys will be willing to help each other out, or you ask a question to the listserv and somebody will usually respond in less than an hour if you just have a question. And then people tell you, what new cases have come out. We get emails from the Bar Association about new appellate decisions that have just been released for our state. You have to go to continuing legal education classes, 12 hours every year. So that's really where you can keep up to date depending on what your specialty is. So yeah, but that's especially true in immigration law, which I don't practice. But immigration law changes so much that there's no way anyone can really be good at immigration law if they just dabble in it. So I mentioned before that my younger sister was an immigration attorney for a number of years. And she would always tell me about how there were some lawyers that acted like they did immigration law in addition to 6 to 10 other areas of law. And the attorneys that really did know their stuff, that were board certified in immigration, would kind of scoff at these other attorneys and know that they were probably screwing up their clients' cases. And sometimes those clients would then go find another immigration attorney to help fix the problems that the incompetent attorney had caused. So that's why you definitely don't want to dabble, especially in immigration law where it changes so often. Yeah. So, okay. Glad I made you laugh. Yeah. Hi, I just made it. Oh, yeah. I did. I answered that probably about 10 minutes ago. You just missed it, Franklin. So hopefully you can watch it on replay. Yeah. So I don't have any names of real resources for first years in big law other than, some general advice, which I mentioned already about, how to conduct yourself in big law. Don't complain, keep your head down, be willing to work those long hours and work weekends. So because that's what they hire you for. Yeah. Many people scored nicely in LSAT don't end up going to law school. Why do you think that is? And what alternatives do they end up doing? Well, I think part of it, if you've seen a lot of my other videos, they are pretty cynical, right? Cynical of the legal profession and everything. I think people that can score like, 170 something or almost a perfect score on the LSAT, like they're probably realizing that they could make really great money without going to law school, like doing things in the IT world or like, for example, my cousin's son, for a little while there, he was thinking about law school. Of course, he didn't ask me my opinion, but he's at Duke right now. And he was always like really good. He was like a debate champion, competed throughout the state and nationwide in debate when he was a high schooler. So now he's at Duke. But last I heard, he's decided that he is not going to medical school. He's not going to law school. He's going to major in data science and start working after he graduates from Duke, which is in another year. So, so there are just like so many other careers out there with major corporations, or, maybe they want to, get a master's degree in something else like Masters of Public Health, an MBA. If you can get into a top school, then you have a much better chance of getting a really high paying job. Also, depends what the person's personal career goals are. Yeah. So I think maybe more people have heard from people like me, who went through law school and then felt like, oh, this wasn't exactly what I thought I was going to get into, or I didn't even get any sort of big law firm job. I couldn't even get like a bigger or better paying law firm job. It really got me down. Definitely, years ago when I was just working for small law firms and making very low pay and feeling pretty, bummed out about my decision about going to law school. So, yeah, you just got to talk to as many people as you can, and hopefully they'll be honest with you, because like I said, the problem is when you just like randomly pick somebody that looks like a successful lawyer and they don't know you, they're not going to really like give you the nitty gritty details about any problems that they see within the profession or any negatives about the profession. And you're only going to be talking to people who have clearly succeeded because they're still working as lawyers for the more prestigious law firms. So it kind of gives you a biased point of view when the people who have had problems within the profession, they're not out there on Google or YouTube, or you can't find them on LinkedIn because they're not practicing anymore. Yeah. So there are definitely a lot of other career options out there too, other than law school, if you're a smart person and you want to make good money, or at least have a good white collar professional job with benefits. Yeah. Any advice on how to increase chance of receiving a law firm offer after a callback interview? Well, probably, definitely do your research on the people at the firm. If you actually know who you're going to interview with, then you, of course, want to read their biographies on the firm's website and just Google them and see if there's anything that you can kind of draw a connection with. Like, I remember one time during the OCI interviews, which I pretty much bombed out on because I didn't get any job offers. But at Georgetown, we had these like interviews in hotel rooms, like down the street from where the law school was. And so you had to like wait out in the hallway. And then when it was your turn, then, the door would open up and you'd have to go into the hotel room for your interview. So it's kind of odd like that. But I remember sitting out there in the hallway, and it seemed like my law school classmate, who was like this outgoing guy who was previously the student body president at UT Austin. So he was just yucking it up with the interviewer, this male interviewer from the law firm. And they're just like talking and laughing and shooting the breeze and talking about sports and stuff. So then I went in, and I don't know anything about football. I don't care about sports, other than figure skating. But of course, that male interviewer was not into figure skating. So it just seemed really like awkward and weird, because I had just heard that interviewer just yucking it up and chatting away with my classmate. But then during my interview, it just seemed really like stilted and awkward. And I could already tell that that attorney wasn't going to recommend that I get chosen for whatever it was I was interviewing for. It might have been for a summer associate position as opposed to, a regular attorney position. But yeah, that's why, it does put certain people at a disadvantage if you're not into sports like the person that you're interviewing is into, or you're female, but the interviewer is male and old and, wants to talk about golf, So, yeah. So if there's any way you can do your due diligence on the people that you might be interviewing with, then try to do that and maybe do some reading or, know more about popular culture, know more about sports, just any sort of like idle chit chat that kind of greases the wheels so that you can just have like a, fun, raucous conversation with your interviewer and they really like you and they're going to give you an offer because they like you and they see you as one of the guys. So yeah, so that's another like insider tip. If you want to get a job, you have to be personable and you have to be able to do that kind of like small talk, chit chat type of stuff, which unfortunately puts some people at a disadvantage if you're just not, part of that group or, interested in those types of things that the interviewer is interested in. Yeah, good luck. Yeah. What makes law school hard? Probably all the reading. There was tons and tons and tons of reading. So it got to the point where I started standing up to read. Like I would just like find an empty classroom and just sit there, or not sit there. I would stand there with the books so I could read because I got so sick and tired of sitting all the time. So you're definitely going to be doing tons and tons of reading, and there's going to be a lot of assignments, and there's also, papers to write. When I was at Georgetown, everybody had to at least take a class that required you to write a research paper, which then you could potentially submit to be published in a law journal. So I had that paper to write during my third year. And then there's also there's a competition to get onto the law review at the end of your first year. There's also voluntary moot court competitions if you want to try to get on the school's moot court. Yeah, I think that's what they call it at most law schools, moot court team. You have to try out for that. And then by second year, a lot of people tend to try to get internships so that you're also working or interning for at least 10 hours during the week while you're also trying to juggle your schoolwork. And you might be on a law review, which also is another big time suck because there's so much work to do when you're on a law review and deadlines for that too. Plus trying to interview and possibly, flying across the country, going to job fairs too. So there's a lot of stuff going on at the same time, plus this kind of like boiler room type of, I don't know, what should I call it? Pressure cooker type of environment where that it's pretty much only the top 10% of the class, or in lower ranked schools, it's probably only the top like 2 to 5% of the class that are really going to have a shot at getting the most prestigious, best paying jobs and federal clerkships or maybe Supreme Court clerkships. I mean, that's very, very rare. But so there's that element of competition there too, when you're suddenly thrown into this like totally new environment with a lot of work going on, plus that pressure of knowing that if you're at the bottom of the class, then you're probably not going to be able to get that many job opportunities, or you could be unemployed at the time of graduation. So yeah, it is. That all makes it hard. That all makes it stressful in a nutshell. Yeah. But I survived it somehow. Yeah. Oh, thank you for being here, Dr. Seven. Congratulations on winning. Can a convicted felon be a lawyer? I don't think so. Yeah. What about a person convicted of a crime? Yeah, probably not. Probably not. I mean, never say never, but I'm pretty sure that convicted felons cannot be lawyers. There might be a way with some state bars to make your case and try to appeal their denial or whatever, but there are like hoops that you have to jump through if you just want to. I mean, if you want to get licensed, it's not just a matter of passing the bar exam, but you also have to pass the character and fitness test. Or, well, it's not really a test, but it's an application. I remember for the states that I applied for, there was always like this humongous, probably more than 20-page, back when it was on paper, application where you have to write every single place you've lived since you were 18, all the roommates you've had, all the jobs you've had since you've been 18. You need to get letters of recommendation about your character from I think maybe like 5 people who have known you for more than 5 years. I mean, there's definitely all these like requirements, letters of recommendation from people. You have to give names and phone numbers to your managers or all your former employers since you were 18, and they'll do a huge check on you, as well as giving fingerprints too. So they'll do a humongous check on you, not just a criminal background, but also just about you in general. Like, was there anything bad in your record, like getting suspended from school when you were in college for plagiarism? Or, were you arrested for shoplifting when you were a teenager? Do you have any DWIs? And then they also make you, at least in North Carolina, they make you have a brief interview with another attorney who's part of the committee, to talk to you about any red flags or any issues in general with your character and fitness application. So, anyway, I think in general, the answer is no, that they're not going to let those types of people become lawyers, but there might be some exceptions depending on what state it is also. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you, Franklin. I wish you all the best. Yeah. I guess you're graduating soon, right? So hope everything is working out well. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I see there are tons more comments that have rolled up since I last checked over here. So this is going to be another humongously long live stream. Okay. Are extracurricular activities like participation in bar association important even after? Yes, I think so. Well, I mean, not being an officer. Nah, I mean, you don't really have to be an officer. I have been sort of like an officer for some attorney groups, but it's not like something you really have to do, but it's very advisable, especially if you're a solo attorney or working for a smaller firm where you really need to network and drum up business and get yourself known out there. So it's important because for many reasons. First of all, it's good to just know other attorneys, because if you know people more on a personal level, and you've seen them at different meetings and, maybe worked with them to plan events or conferences or continuing legal ed classes or to do pro bono work or volunteer work, then, it's all good for the profession, right? When people get along well on a personal level, then they're less likely to be just adversarial and hostile towards you if you ever run into them in court and have them as your opposing counsel, right? And you never know if you might need advice from a fellow attorney, or, sometimes people just want to know, like, hey, what's your experience been with this judge, or what was your experience with this kind of case? So it's always good to have other attorneys that you're, friends with, or at least, know on a more social level, so that you can help each other out. Yeah. But being an officer, I mean, I've done that before. It's definitely very time consuming. So right now I am no longer trying to be an officer for any sort of bar association, although I have been asked a couple of times, but it's just too time consuming and I have real work to do. So yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, great. Okay, well, yeah, feel free to watch whatever videos you want to watch. I mean, it's all out there, just trying to give more information for people so they can make an informed decision if they decide to go to law school or want to know more about the legal profession. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So my cousin's son, yeah, the one that for a little while there, I was like, oh, he's thinking about going to law school. Well, I guess nobody's asking me what my opinion is. So yeah, he's at Duke. He's a really, really smart kid. I guess he's not really a kid anymore. Yeah. What about for personal fulfillment and to have technical skill to advocate? Yeah. I mean, sometimes people do want to go to law school for that reason and, be my guest. And that's also a good, I mean, it could be a fine reason to go to law school, but you definitely have to look at what the costs are and whether you can afford to go to law school, depending on which one you go to. Yeah. I was in the debate team. The reason why I want to do law is because it requires speaking and I love talking, but Judy, should a person go to law school because you love talking? Well, not just because you love talking. Yeah, because not every lawyer really has to talk that much. And a lot of lawyers don't even go to court. So there are just so many different kinds of legal jobs you could get after law school if you can get a good legal job, but not everything requires going to court and arguing all the time or even talking to people. You might wind up sitting in front of a computer most of the time doing legal research and writing memos and briefs. So it really depends on what you end up doing. Yeah, but certainly it helps if you're a sociable person who likes to talk to other people, because then you might be better qualified for better range of jobs then, as opposed to someone that, has social anxiety and freaks out if they have to talk to people. Do you mind elaborating on why you second guess your decision to attend law school? Also, there's a perception that all law school students that attend a T14 get a big law job. Is that true? No, that is so not true. Yeah. So recently there was somebody that left a comment on one of my really old videos about why going to law school is a bad idea, the 6-minute short one that wasn't very well made, but for some reason or the other, thousands of people have viewed it, which is kind of embarrassing because I know it wasn't structured well. I just was kind of shooting off the top of my head. It wasn't filmed well, but people watched it. So some like smarty pants guy wrote, well, how could it be possible that you only made about $30,000 at your job out of law school when you went to Georgetown? All Georgetown students make the average Georgetown law graduate makes $180,000 a year. So what's the true story on this? And I'm like, well, excuse you, I mean, smell you. But anyway, so my reasoning, or my side of the story is that, well, first of all, this was like back in 2000 when I graduated from Georgetown. And I'm not lying, that was a base salary that in today's dollars would probably be about $30,000. My base salary was roughly $30K in today's dollars. And I was also supposed to be paid commissions too, based on, how much we took in from the cases that I worked on. But then ultimately my boss got mad when I told him I had to move. So he cut out a huge chunk of my commissions that I was really entitled to. And I wasn't going to sue him or raise a fit about it because ultimately, I still needed him to be a reference so that I could get another job when I moved to North Carolina. So that's what happened to me. I mean, it's only the people at the top of the class. I mean, the percentage varies, it could be top 10%, it could be top 30% or whatever, who have a legitimate shot at getting big law jobs. And not everybody even wants a big law job anyway. I mean, at Georgetown, we certainly had the Office for Public Interest Career Services, something like that. I think it's called OPICS, Office of Public Interest Career Services. Yeah, so there was a significant chunk of students that already went in knowing that they didn't even want to get a big law job and they were going to do public interest law. So, but in my case, I was pretty much open to anything. And I took what I could get, which was working for that very small little law firm up in Northern Virginia with that base salary of roughly $30K in today's dollars. So anyway, I think I mentioned in my previous live stream about why our former lawyers bitter, or why are so many former lawyers bitter. So if you want to hear the full story about why I second guessed my decision to go to law school, you can watch that, as well as the thing about why going to law school is a bad idea, which again, it's kind of embarrassing to think like, wow, thousands of people have watched that video now. But when I made it, I thought that maybe there would be like 10 to 50 people, 20 people at most watching that video, because it was one of the very first videos I made over a year and a half ago for YouTube. And I really didn't think anybody would be watching it. So that's why I was spouting my mouth off and maybe being a little bit too honest about, what happened with me and my legal career after leaving Georgetown. But in all due respect, that first job, despite some of the negatives, at least I did learn a lot at my first job out of law school. And I really do feel like if I had stayed in the DC area, if I didn't move to North Carolina and continued working for the same person or the same place, then, I would have made really good money that year if he hadn't cut me out of my commissions. And most likely I probably could have lateraled to, an even better job or a federal government job if I had stayed around there. But instead I had to move to North Carolina, where my legal career kind of took a nosedive, and it was really, really hard to find jobs here I mean, it's very different, and the pay is definitely a lot lower also. Yeah, but somehow I managed to build up a solo law practice that has done pretty well, and that's what saved me from becoming one of those bitter former lawyers. Yeah. So couldn't find the number online. What's your guess on the percentage of people who make it in a corporate law firm or corporate legal? Yeah, I think it's really, I don't think there's like some set percentage out there, because I mean, who's keeping track of it? Yeah, because I would say, yeah, like my ex-husband like didn't even keep in touch with any of his colleagues once he left that big law firm in DC. So, who knows? They're probably all gone. Like all the people that he worked with that were not partners years and years ago, they probably all, I would say like 99% of them probably um, already left that firm, or who knows, might not even be practicing attorneys anymore because it's been 20 years or more than 20 years since then. Yeah, so it is very rare because, you might have like an incoming class of, say, like, I don't know, 50 new associates that go to work for the big law firm. And after the first year, maybe a third of them are gone. After the second year, maybe half of them are gone. There's just like this slow attrition, either voluntary or forced upon them. And then usually by like fourth or fifth or sixth year, you're either told that you're not going to make partner and you need to find another job, or you might get laid off, or voila, a little smidgen of those people do make partner. But even then, some of the people who make partner end up quitting or moving to a different type of legal job or going to another law firm. Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of like movement within the profession too. So I think that's what makes it hard to figure out, what percentage of people really make it or become partner at a big law firm. Yeah. So what can a person do with an English degree besides being an English teacher? Well, I do have a friend. I think she has an English degree, and then she also ended up getting like a master's in library sciences. And then somehow she's working for some like major corporation doing something like project management or being a project manager. I mean, she makes really good money. So I'm not really even sure like how she was able to transition from there, but sometimes it has to do with a lot of blind luck and who you know. So that's why it's good that, you like talking to people, because, if you have a degree like that, then you might need to do a lot of networking to be able to schmooze and get like different types of jobs within bigger corporations that pay better than being an English teacher. Yeah, but I do have another friend who had a master's degree in English and wound up teaching at a community college, but the pay was absolutely terrible. And it was just like a contract job that she would just have to try to get renewed every year, I think. Like it's not even a living wage if you work for a community college. That seems almost like a part-time job for someone that has another job on the side, or maybe someone that might come from a rich family and is just doing it just to make a little bit of extra money and say that they're doing something. It's really, really hard. Like if you have a humanities degree or English degree, to get a well-paying job with a bachelor's. Yeah, so that's why a lot of people do wind up going to graduate school. Just like I was an ethnic studies major at Berkeley. What kind of job was I really going to get? With an ethnic studies degree, I would have had to go to some sort of graduate school to get a decent paying job no matter what. Yeah. Oh yeah, let's see. Okay, so I think I answered that already. Oh yeah, video on office decor. Yeah, I addressed that earlier too. I really don't have much to say about office decor because I'm no good at decorating spaces and do it yourself type stuff. So yeah, I am not an expert on office decor at all. It really depends on your own personal taste. Like some people really like that dark traditional mahogany wooden desk and credenza and bookshelf, like very lawyerly and old-fashioned style decor. Other people like modern decor. So yeah, I mean, I don't have anything exciting to say about that. Yeah. What happens to behind the scenes after a callback interview? Well, I'm sure the attorneys that do the interviews, because from what I remember back when I was at Georgetown, usually they had 2 attorneys from each firm or each employer that would, either interview the student together, or, maybe one attorney would take half the students and then the other half of the students would be interviewed by the other person. And they probably have some sort of like, some sort of like ranking sheet or rating sheet that they're writing, after you leave and stuff, on different attributes, or how they rank you on different what do you call it, criteria. Yeah. So I'm sure they just all like sit around and powwow over who are the top selections, just based on your interview, as well as whatever else you might have submitted, like your writing sample and your transcript. And then they'll see if they want to extend you an offer for a summer position, or for actual attorney positions. I'm pretty sure, most places have more than one interview. So you would probably have to go back again for a second round interview and talk to more people before they decide whether they're going to extend an offer to you or not. Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't think that person interviewing me that didn't seem excited about me was part of JD Underground. Or actually, back then, JD Underground didn't even exist. JD Underground didn't start until about 2007 or 2006, I think. Yeah. Yeah, rest in peace, RIP JD Underground. Yeah, I do miss that forum. And it's funny how some people found my YouTube channel and they were like, hey, I remember you from JD Underground, and this was my screen name. So it's really funny. Yeah, we're proud of you. You graduated from Jordan. Yeah, okay, thanks. Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, it's nice to think like, okay, well, at least I survived. I still have my bar license. I didn't get disbarred. I'm still a practicing attorney, which means, oh my gosh, I really still have more work to do. I have like tons more work to do this weekend, and a deadline coming up, and more court hearings. So I probably can't keep hanging around here for that long. Yeah, but thank you so much for your support, Franklin. And I do wish you the best. I mean, what are your plans so far now? Like, are you still interviewing with other places, or still thinking about going to get an LLM? So yeah. Okay. Yeah. Something's insane. A lawyer has to oversee and take the responsibilities. And yeah. What types of, oh, okay. Well, usually it has to do with money. Yeah. Because one of the partners I worked for, he would say that, oh, the bar doesn't care if you sleep with your clients, or you're a drunk or a druggie or whatever, as long as you don't steal money. That's the thing that the bar will jump all over you for and get you disbarred, is for mishandling your client funds. Yeah, because an attorney I know, he did get, I think, reprimanded or something. Like, he didn't actually get disbarred or suspended, but he did get some sort of penalty from the state bar, because I think he wasn't properly supervising his paralegals. And so some of the client money from a real estate transaction went missing. And it turned out the paralegal might have caused the error, or stolen some money, or something was mishandled there with some money that didn't belong to the attorney. It was in the trust account, which is where you have to hold the separate funds that don't really belong to you, but belong to your client. So yeah, this attorney I know did get punished briefly. I don't even know what exactly happened to him, but he's still practicing now. Yeah. So, could someone work in the FBI? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly, but as far as I know, there's no requirement as to majoring in a certain field to get a job with the FBI. Yeah, so that's definitely something you want to ask, like maybe on the internet, on Reddit forums or whatever, because I'm not familiar with working for the FBI. But the funny thing is that I did interview with the CIA in DC. Well, actually, it was out in Virginia. The headquarters is out in this like wooded area in Virginia. So I interviewed there, but it was like one of the worst interviews I had, because the person that was interviewing me was so openly hostile and rude. So it was a very strange situation where I almost felt like just getting up and walking out of the interview, because I knew he wasn't going to give me the job. But on the other hand, I wonder if he deliberately, put on such a rude, confrontational demeanor, because he wanted to see how I would be able to respond to that kind of situation. But anyway, whatever, I mean, after that weird interview with the CIA, I did not want to work there anymore. Plus, if you try to work for at least CIA, probably FBI also, they do want to know about your whole family, your extended family, and if you have relatives that live in another country. So I think that was also detrimental to my application because back then my parents were living in Taiwan at the time. So I had to reveal that. And I have a lot of relatives that also live in Taiwan as well as Canada. And so, you know, I think they want to see if there's any potential for you being influenced or having other allegiances or whatever. So, anyway, bottom line is I didn't get the job at the CIA. So, but surprisingly, it didn't pay well either. I think the starting salary there would have been like very low back when I was interviewing, probably less than 50,000 a year. Yeah, I'm not sure what it is now. Yeah. What's your thought on law school transfer? Yeah, I think it's really hard to transfer because I've heard that some law schools deliberately make things difficult or impossible for their students to transfer because the students are the money makers for the school. So why would they want to let you go once you've already, you know, gone there and paid the deposit and you started attending class and stuff? They don't want to let you go. So yeah, it's really hard to transfer. You basically have to have all A's and be at the top of the class after the first semester. And a lot of times you also have to get a recommendation, which would be really hard if, especially if you go to a bigger law school where the professors don't really even know you. So where would you get a recommendation letter from? I think it's just really, really hard. And also usually not advisable to transfer unless it's to a much, much better school. Like, you know, somehow you get into Stanford as a transfer student or Yale as a transfer student from, say, like GW, you know. Otherwise, you know, if the school is only a little bit higher ranked than the current school you're already at, it's probably not worth the trouble and the additional stress, you know, taking time away from your studies, trying to do another application during your first year at law school. Yeah, because I've also heard that there are some law schools that don't even release your first semester grades until way later during the spring semester when the deadline has already passed for most schools to transfer. So, you know, I think it's usually not a good idea. And oftentimes it's not worth the additional stress and hassle. Yeah. So, oh yeah. Yeah, your GPA has to be good for FBI. Okay, well, I mean, that totally makes sense too. Yeah, I mean, GPA is so important. So that's why I, again, like to stress that whether you're in college right now or if you're in law school, you know, just focus on getting great grades. Extracurriculars are not really that important, especially when you're already in law school. So don't waste your time doing extracurriculars because I really got distracted by, you know, doing all sorts of different like community involvement and volunteer work. And just, I think I was kind of overwhelmed because there was so much fun stuff going on in DC and a lot of socializing and places to go and, you know, meeting new people and everything. So I really got distracted from just sitting in the law library and studying and focusing. And, you know, it's all about the grades once you're in law school. And it matters so much, you know, otherwise you could get shut out of the vast majority of job options. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So I think I'll end it here. Once again, ultra long live stream. I thought this was going to be about 30 minutes long so that we could just choose to give away people and answer a few questions. So I really appreciate everybody's support out there. I can't believe I've exceeded 2,000 subscribers already. Feel free to leave comments later on if you think of anything else that you'd like me to cover for a future live stream show. And so the live stream show this coming Friday at 8 o'clock Eastern time is going to feature the former lawyer who quit her big law firm job after about 10 years in the profession. And now she focuses on helping lawyers transition out of the legal profession. So yeah. Thank you so much again. And hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Yeah. Thanks for being here. Yeah, right. Somehow I don't think there's going to be like, you know, I'd be really shocked if I even get to like 5,000 subscribers, but we'll see. I mean, I'm having a good time and thank you all for your support. Have a good day.